Well, the leaves and the weather have suddenly turned fall-ish. I love that sunrise there. So that is why I'm wearing my cloak. It's mostly wool, so it's nice and warm. Um, but that's not the reason we're out here. The reason we're out here is persimmons. Now, the Indiana persimmon is not like the persimmons you'll find in the store. These are only about an inch across. You can see a bunch of them in my hand. The persimmons you'll find in the store would be Fuyu or Hachia persimmons, which are of Oriental origin. You can grow them in Indiana, but they are not native. These are the Indiana native persimmon, and there's a lot you can do with these. First, they taste amazing. They are the quintessential fall color, kind of that orange with a slight bit of purple. I love it. Um, the flesh is very, very sweet when they are ripe. It's awfully tannic when they are not ripe. And how you know they are ripe is basically when they're falling to mush. So these are almost ripe. Let me put these down so I can show you one that's pretty close to being ripe. So basically when they start to look ugly, now this one has some dirt on it because it fell on a dirty part of the forest floor. So this is almost ripe. So basically when they feel like a paper bag filled with water, that's about when they're ripe. So they will be squishy, squish, 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 not firm like this one. So you want them squishy. Now they will ripen up sort of if you put a bunch of slightly unripe ones like this one that isn't quite ripe. If you put a bunch of these in a paper bag and roll it up, within 12-24 hours they should start to get mushy. Fruit in general will do that actually. Apples, bananas, even things like well, I don't know, you'd ripen onions. Anyway, fruit, like apples, bananas, etc., produce ethylene gas when they ripen, which causes other things to ripen. So you can do that with bananas, apples, like I said, persimmons, to get them nice and squishy. And then you can put them through a pulp masher or like a fruit strainer or something. One of those where it's got like a colander bowl and a couple of blades, and you turn the wheel and grind it up. That removes the seeds. So there are a lot of seeds in these. The vast majority of wild fruit, the whole point of a tree growing fruit is to drop its seeds. The fruit, the reason it's sweet is those sugars hold a bunch of the nutrients, and it provides a calorie intake for the seed to slowly stay alive during the winter and then have a quick growth in the spring. So as an example of how many seeds are in this little thing, this is only about, that big, about an inch across. There's a seed. One seed. Two seeds. 3, 4. Okay. So you've got those seeds. Just throw them down here. If they grow, great. If not, something will eat them. Big seeds. They are edible. They're awfully tough. You can, well, we've done this, and it's actually pretty good. Boil the seeds and let them simmer for several minutes. They produce this dark, they turn the water dark, and it has been used as a coffee substitute, a caffeine-free coffee substitute. Do not boil let me think, how'd that work? Yeah, don't soak the seeds overnight because they still have a lot of tannins. The water will draw the tannins out of them, and it tastes awful. So don't do that. There are people who say that you can roast the persimmon seeds and eat them like pumpkin seeds. We tried it, and they're still awfully hard. Like, you'll probably break a tooth. So I'm not sure exactly how to do that. You probably will not see persimmons in a city area. It's definitely a more rural thing. they produce a ton of seeds. Seeds, but also a ton of fruit. So here's a persimmon tree. They never get very big. This one has a couple of vines on it, but this one is about maybe a foot across. Maybe 30, 40, maybe 50 feet tall. These are the leaves. Let's get one here. They've been kind of chewed up a bit. Here we go. This isn't a fantastic example. But so if this was full, it would be kind of spearhead shaped. They get these dark spots on them very early, and they're a thick, sort of waxy feeling leaf with a very pronounced rib down the middle. It's definitely a unique dark green color in large clusters, but the main thing is in September or October, they'll have the fruit that's starting to get, let me see if I can grab one. Well, I don't know. Maybe we can, maybe. Can you see that there? No, you can't. Rats. How do we, well, I'm sorry. I wish I could show you the tree, the fruits on the tree, but the phone won't pick them up. They're right there. They're above my head. I just can't, the phone just can't pick them up. But they start to develop the fruits. I think we started seeing them in May or June, but they are awfully green. They will fall from the trees because it produces a big cluster of flowers, and each pollinated flower will produce a fruit. And then as the fruits grow, they will push the weaker ones off. So the ground was covered in the green ones, which you can't really use for anything. We even tried to feed them to the chickens, and they didn't want them. But that sun, I mean, it's great. It's great to have the sunshine in the cold, but it doesn't do any favors for the camera. There we go. That's better. It's a little warmer. I could take off the hood. All right. So, persimmons. Probably the most traditional way of using persimmons in Indiana would be persimmon pudding, which is fantastic. In fact, check the description below for the recipe that we use. My sister made one. Oh boy. Oh, it is so good. The persimmon taste is really unique. It's not like a tropical fruit. I would guess the closest it is to would be, actually I really don't know. It's pulpy. Almost, no, not even pulpy. It's creamy. Creamy. Almost like a hint of cinnamon to it. It's, if you have had a Fuyu or Hachia persimmon, one of those that you can find in the store that's like that big, then it's similar to that, but a bit more. Yeah, it's almost like that with a bit of cinnamon or clove added. It's definitely a unique taste. You can eat them raw. They do still tend to have a bit of tannins in them, so they taste better in a pudding, but they still taste really good raw. So yeah, you can supposedly roast the seeds, boil them for a coffee substitute. I have yet to find out if you can use the leaves for anything, but it does have, nope, wrong way. That's not it. Come on, that's the tree. Oh, there we go. That's the tree. So there falls another fruit. Yeah, so it has a bunch of leaves, and they can hang pretty low. That one there is probably 8-10 feet off the ground. We'd have more if it was standing out in the open. So as far as where persimmons grow, they will grow just about anywhere in Indiana woodlands. Southern Indiana. Northern Indiana doesn't really do it too much. But they will grow all throughout. We have neighbors down the road a ways who can't get to their persimmons because it's several hundred yards back in their woods, and everything in the woods loves persimmons. Squirrels will eat them off the tree when they fall. Deer will eat them. Deer, birds, raccoons. Basically everything. So if you have a persimmon tree and you want to eat the persimmons, you really have to be on top of it. We come out here to gather, well, now that they're falling basically faster than we can pick them up, we gather them 3 times a day. And currently, after we process them and separate the pulp and give the seeds to the chickens, we have 4 or 5 gallons of the pulp, which for perspective, a pudding will, which allows a decent sized serving for everybody who lives here. It takes 2 cups of persimmons, 2 cups of persimmon pulp, and we have 4 or 5 gallons. So we could still be eating persimmon pudding by the time that we are harvesting persimmons next year, which would be fantastic. We are also going to experiment with other ways of using it, like they ferment pretty easily. In fact, sometimes they ferment just setting them out and ripening them, so we may try some persimmon wine. We may infuse it into kefir or kombucha, which we've made. We actually have some going right now. Need to think about that. So yeah, persimmons. Oh, one more way to identify the tree would be the bark. Now, I'm not too good at identifying these, but the bark is definitely unique. It's a lighter color, and it does have the ribs like a lot of other Indiana trees do, but they are cross-sectioned by these tiny little pieces. It's almost like somebody took blocks and stuck them on here to make the bark. So they're there's kind of a generic flow to the bark, but it's not straight up and down like some other trees. It's not flaky like a hickory. We have a shagbark hickory, and that's really flaky stuff. This has had a little bit of damage to it. There's a vine there. All those leaves have been picked off. I wonder who did that. Not a deer. They don't reach that high. I don't know. But yeah, so that's one way to tell the persimmon, and then the tree as well. The leaves. Also, unlike many trees, the same type of bark on the trunk goes onto the branches as well. So there's a branch there off this tree, and it has the same bark pattern as it does on the main trunk of the tree. So there's a few ways to identify persimmon, a few ways to use persimmons. If you're looking for persimmon pulp in stores, good luck. It does not store very well. You have to freeze it or use it immediately. It's expensive. It's time consuming. It is difficult to grow these commercially because they just I don't know, they're kind of an odd tree to grow. We're going to try to grow some and keep them pruned really short for use in our garden for next year. I mean, they'll take a few years to grow, but you know, they'll still provide shade and leaves and whatnot. But yeah, so I'm sad to say, but if you can't, if you're in the city, especially somewhere in northern Indiana, or if you are not in the Midwest, you may just be out of luck, because this is a fairly difficult tree to come across cultivated. There are a couple cultivated varieties, but mostly you just have to find it wild. But if you can, you now have some information on how to use them, how to collect them, when are they ripe, and yeah, I love them. If you can get a hold of them, do so, because they really have a flavor that is different than anything else I've had before.